Hello and welcome to this edition of the Beacon Hill Report. I'm Jim Marshall of the New Bedford Cable Network. First show of the year. I think you're always like the first one of the year.
Yeah, I know.
Representative Tony Cabral. I go in alphabetical order.
Right?
C is the first one there. So State Representative Tony Cabral joining us again to start the year. Yes. So a belated Happy New Year. It's in February here, but belated Happy New Year.
Thank you very much.
Lots going on to start the year here for you guys.
Yes, lots of it.
Lots going on. Governor came out with her budget. You've got the local empowerment issue that just passed. Immigration has been a big issue. What do you think, as you're looking at it right now, the overview, and you've been there for a while, there's got to be, what issues do you think the legislature is going to tackle this year and actually get things done on?
Well, obviously the budget, we have to do it, right?
Correct.
That one, and that's the big piece that we have to really deal with. So we're going to get that one done. We're going to get economic development bill, which hasn't even been filed, but we anticipate that the governor is going to file some form of economic development bill sometime this month or next month. And I believe we would like to do that. I know the legislature would like to do a bill around that issue of economic development. We have this so-called Municipal Empowerment Act that the governor has just submitted to the legislature. We might deal with some of those issues. Right now, I don't see a rush to deal with some of them. There's a lot of it in there, a bunch of stuff in there.
Right.
That probably some of them will not be taken up by the legislature.
The last time you were here, because I was watching the show just to go over too, you emphasized a lot on housing.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a huge issue. Do you see housing being addressed in some form by the legislature in the next 6 months?
Yes, that's the other issue that we're going to deal with. We're going to pass a housing bond bill that the governor originally submitted to us sometime late last year. It's about $4 billion of a bond bill. And in there are some additional initiatives to try to incentivize developers and communities to build additional housing stock. Also, the MBTA Act, if you remember, if you're going to be an MBTA community, then you had to pass some local policies that would allow multi-family units to be built. We in New Bedford, we're doing a lot of that downtown.
Right. Yeah, we had the recent announcement of the old registry of motor vehicles being
right. Well, just on Union Street, you have that recent announcement where the old RMV was. You have down the street, you have a development that already started, which is across from the Mallows building. Mm-hmm. Then further down, you have additional housing units where the National Club used to be, above there and behind.
Right.
So that's going to add quite a number of units to New Bedford, and that's good, because I think it will help create additional housing stock and therefore putting pressure on stabilizing the prices of rents.
You talked about last time, I mean, one of the issues, the challenges that you're facing, not you, but the legislature in general is facing, is really about developers, and that if they can build something here or build something in Boston, the cost is relatively the same products, labor and all that, but your return on your investment is higher up in Boston than it is down here, because they can charge way more for rent than you can down here. Does the legislature, do we have to do something to make that even out somehow for the communities outside of Boston?
We have, and we actually have done that. We've been talking about this for quite some time. And last year, 2023, the governor was very supportive, and the lieutenant governor, the so-called HDIP program, which is specifically for gateway cities, Bedford, Fall River, Brockton, Taunton, and so forth. About 26 communities across the state are considered gateway cities. And this program, the HDIP program, is just for those communities. Other communities don't qualify for that incentive. What that incentive does is, well, we did two things. We passed $57 million for backlog of projects in those communities, and then we increased the annual amount to $30 million versus 10. So new projects come in, they'll be able to be funded quicker. What that program does, it creates a combination of market rate housing and some affordable units. About up to 20% would have to be, could be affordable. But the idea is also to introduce market rate in gateway cities. That's been one of the issues that we needed to really talk about and address. And what this does is, depending on the community, depending on the city, the financial gap might be different.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say in Brockton or Springfield or New Bedford, you might need, the financial gap might be 10%, for example, or 15%. It can go up to 20% or more, meaning once the developer puts all the pieces together, the financial pieces together, and they are short because of the market,
Right.
it's not as rich as, let's say, the Boston market is, then the state can come in and provide that gap.
And that's
some communities could be 5%, it could be 20% of the gap.
And that's what I think too, when you look at your role and your colleagues' role here, the local delegation, you have things that are, some people might say, well, what do we have in common with Springfield? Why would you deal with a Springfield rep or something like that? That particular issue, you want your colleagues in Springfield and Lawrence and what have you to be with you to get
right.
something like that
That's
done,
right.
because there is a dynamic of inside the Beltway, Boston Beltway versus everybody else.
That's right. And I think we need, it's important for us to come together as sort of hubs or cities or greater areas outside of Boston to come together and really lobby and advocate together. And on the issues that are common to all of us, some might be different. Those we let each one deal with it. But those that are common, housing, education.
I would think there's more in common than not
Yes,
when you look at the
yes.
gateway cities.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things,
And the governor just did also announce the program to increase what's called pre-K, universal pre-K,
Right.
specifically for gateway cities as well. So I think we are in a great position as a gateway city to really benefit from a lot of the programs and a lot of the initiatives that the governor really wants to do.
And the gateway cities also have a caucus. I believe you chaired
Yes.
it, or I don't know
Yes,
if it
we
changes every year,
No,
but
I chair the caucus on the House side, and
Yeah.
I have Senator Cronin on the Senate side from Fitchburg.
so you guys are talking on a regular basis to get.
Yeah, we are talking on a regular basis. We meet monthly. We have had the Lieutenant Governor as our guest in the past, and so we have, we believe, don't forget, the Lieutenant Governor used to be the mayor of one of the gateway cities,
Right.
Salem, right?
Right.
So that's very helpful. She understands the issues that we all face as a group of cities in the state and the challenges we face. So she's been listening. I think she's been very supportive on the HDIP program. She was key in making sure that the administration understood how important that was and to get it passed. And I've been working on it, and the Gateway Cities Caucus has been working on that program for a number of years, quite a number of years. And finally, with this administration and with someone like Kim Driscoll, the Lieutenant Governor, understanding gateway cities, that was extremely helpful.
One of the things, switching a little bit to the budget, the governor came out with a budget, but before we get to that, we're still in a fiscal year, and the revenues aren't growing as expected. I know they've made some decisions to sort of balance it, if you will, what they're expecting. Is there concern from you, because you've seen these trends for a while now, is there concern from you about revenue growth in the state?
Well, I think we need to wait for a couple of more quarters to see where it's at. Yes, the first 6 months of the present fiscal year, what was projected to be collected is less than
Correct.
than
Forecasted,
that.
yep.
Forecasted, right? But we actually we have collected more than the previous fiscal year in the first 6 months. So technically, we are not really behind. We're just behind from the forecast, what we
Right.
had projected to be in versus what is happening right now.
But on the side, and you can sort of explain this to folks that don't know, if you're forecasting X amount of dollars and
Right.
you've got a budget that has that X amount of dollars, you're going to have to cut things that, or not
Yeah,
or not
obviously,
do things that
yeah.
you wanted to.
Obviously, the budget was built on that forecast.
Correct.
So you need to adjust, and the governor has proposed adjustments already for the next 6 months. Not proposed, she cut. She used her 9C powers, which allows the governor to make reductions or cuts without the legislature. And she did that to the tune of $375 million, which as you analyze those cuts, has some negative impacts as well.
Yep.
On senior citizen services, on local community-based organizations, that sometimes that's the only revenue they have to provide the kind of services they provide. So they're going to be, in some cases, 50% less funding that they were expecting as well. So they need to do major adjustments on their own budget going forward for the rest of the fiscal year. So those are never pretty. 9C cuts we didn't anticipate. We thought the governor was not going to do the 9C cuts. And she had said that early in December, and she, at the end of December, beginning of January, obviously she made a decision that was different than what she was saying. But I think you have to be fiscally prudent, making sure that we don't get ahead of ourselves here. But we are financially solid, really. We are. We have a rainy day fund of about $8 billion, the biggest in the country, and the biggest we ever had as a state. So we have that cushion.
But it doesn't seem like anybody wants to touch that right now. They're not in that mood.
Well, we've been touching the interest on that money,
Yeah.
okay? Not the principal. But the principal is around $8 billion. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I think we ought to move slowly on that, at least the principal. We need to really be cautious because we don't know what the economy is going to be yet. The feds, as you know, the feds did not decrease the interest rate on the last meeting. We don't know when they're going to start decreasing those interests, those rates. So we are in a cautious period, and I think that's prudent to be.
Do you think that as the House is developing its budget and they come out next with it, do you think that the House is going to step back the forecast money-wise from what the governor proposed hers? Do you think the House might say, well, I don't know if we're going to get that much? Because you're going to have more up-to-date numbers when you release your budget.
We are, but I think the numbers that we will have then obviously will help us figure out if we can go beyond what the governor is proposing, or which areas might be changed or adjusted. There is an agreement already in place between the House, the Senate, and the governor. What's potentially the revenue will be for FY25.
Right, but going in, everybody kind of has a general idea.
A general idea, so
Right.
that we actually cut back on that growth.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Which at this point I think it's a good way of building the budget as well, to the tune of about $1 billion. Adjustment on that.
Your past experience as chairman of capital expenditures, bonding, that thing, the different financial aspects, which are part of the budget, do you see, and I guess this is more of an opinion just on your experience, do you see more of a slowdown on development of projects in the state right now because of, I guess, uncertainty financially?
We don't.
Okay.
I think the state, the capital plan, which is what you are referring to, no, there's no slowing down because we have access to a lot of federal dollars from the infrastructure bill that was passed by Congress and supported by the White House. We're going to be able potentially to have as much as $12-13 billion of cash from the feds to help us with some of the capital projects. I'm talking about the ones that are the responsibility of the state, roads, bridges,
Right.
And so forth.
But the one thing you say about capital, when you talk about, and I just want to clarify too for the folks at home, you always say to me, the things that have already passed that you did when you were chairman of that committee and what have you, they're already there. The money's already there for them.
That's right.
It's the new projects
that
haven't been approved yet.
Annually, we have to look at the annual cap, and we've been increasing the annual cap every year. during the Baker administration, that cap was it wasn't increased as much as the previous governor on an annual basis. During the Vol time, that cap used to go up about 125 million per year. Under the Baker administration, started around 65, and then eventually the last year or so of his administration was around the 100 million increase on that cap. We have to see what the present governor wants to do on that. That we'll have a better indication around May of what her thoughts are on that cap. We expect she's going to increase the cap as well. It's just by how much that cap will be increased. And that allows new projects to sort of come into the plan, because the others, the money is committed already.
And that's what I think. I think people might say, well, you don't see it yet. And as you said, just because you don't see it doesn't mean the money's there. The money's there, the project's been approved, it's going to happen, but it's the new projects that you're debating in committee that...
Right. And you got to, if that cap doesn't grow, then the new projects can't be funded.
Right.
And that's how important it is to really judge what that cap will be, that increase on the cap will be, because that's important for new projects.
We got to talk about, obviously, I know it ties with the budget because it is part of it, but the shelter program, the immigration issues that the state is facing with immigrants coming to the state. There's a right to shelter. I know the governor says we have no more space. The legislature, everybody's looking for money to try to help alleviate the situation, because it's not just immigrants, it's anybody who doesn't have housing right now. There is no room. It's a tough issue to tackle, and I know obviously it's there. It's been the last couple months where we said we don't have any room. How do you look at that right now?
Well, it's a difficult situation. It's an expensive situation too.
You were saying that off camera.
You know,
it's a lot of money.
But the right to shelter is an important policy that we have, important law actually that we have. And right now, the governor set a cap of 7,500, which is technically a violation of the law. There is no cap in the law, but she did it. Let's see how it goes. And that's precisely the reason why the House insisted that she establish an overflow shelter. If she didn't do that, then the House was going to pass language to eliminate the cap.
Actually, they just, in Boston, I think, they just took a tour of the new facility that they're making.
That's going to be the overflow shelter,
Right.
Officially the overflow shelter, because we don't want people sleeping in the airport or sleeping, on the streets. Out of the 7,500 cap right now, about 50% of that is non-migrants or immigrants. It's actually regular folks who live in Massachusetts, who are residents of Massachusetts that need shelter, temporary shelter. It's important to put those numbers in perspective. So we're not just the crisis is not just
no, exactly.
To do with migrants. Yeah, there is an issue with migrants, and I think the federal government needs to resolve that issue. They need to provide funding for the states and for cities, in case of New York and other major cities that also are feeling the heat on this issue. Because it's not fair that we, as taxpayers in Massachusetts, are going to foot the bill for failure of immigration policy by Congress and by the federal government. So, and I think the U.S. Senate is ready to pass something that will bring, that will include, let me put it this way, that will include about $1.4 billion precisely to help states and cities with the issue of shelter around migrants.
Yeah.
So that will be very helpful for us in Massachusetts as well.
And I know they do the count every year in New Bedford for the homeless, and the Sister Rose House is a shelter, and it always amazes me that, I mean, you don't see it, but there are people in this community who have no place to go, and they do go to the Sister Rose House or other facilities here, and I'm sure that those facilities need money too.
They do. I mean, and most of those facilities that you referred to, they primarily handle Massachusetts residents.
Oh, yeah, locals,
locals and or regional folks. The overflow or the additional of migrants has really been dealt differently, not to overwhelm some of those shelters. But it's important that we address the issue. We just cannot walk away and have people on the streets, especially in the wintertime. It's very difficult for anyone or for any family. In this case, you're talking about families with kids
Right.
that also need to go to school. So you can't just walk away from that responsibility. Granted that we have to deal financially with it, and I think in terms of the migrant families, the federal government, it's their responsibility to help us in Massachusetts, help New York City, Texas, whatever state might be, to really handle the situation. And they need to reform immigration. That's the only way we're going to really begin to address this issue. Not just throwing money at shelters is going to resolve the issue.
I want to switch gears because last week you were one of the sponsors, organizers of an event at UMass Dartmouth looking at the fentanyl crisis.
Yep.
And I know that you and Rep. Hendricks were there and speaking about that. And I'm curious, I mean, I saw a thing that the deaths are up with fentanyl. Obviously, it's a huge issue. Again, from your role as a legislator, what can be done to slow down this epidemic?
I think we need to concentrate on education and prevention and treatment.
Yeah.
Those three areas. Not to compare this issue with tobacco smoking, right? But when we started this campaign, the anti-tobacco campaign in the country, about 42% of adults used to smoke. Today is down to 12%. That's amazing, right? And I think in terms of opioids, and fentanyl in particular, it's extremely dangerous, as everybody knows. You need to really put some effort and some money behind that kind of a campaign to really educate families, educate population overall. And we got to have and be supportive of opportunities to help these individuals. For example, Narcan, it's very important that everybody is aware of how important that is, how to use it. Nothing wrong with it. It actually saves lives. It does, because if you don't save that life, then you can't help them with treatment. You cannot help them with anything else. So I think we need to really come around and forget about the stigma in terms of, because now even the police department, the fire department, they carry Narcan with them.
Yeah.
But I think we need to go beyond those institutional departments.
The thing that sort of puzzles me is that it seems as though obviously more people, there's more people dying, more overdoses. And to me, I guess as a layman, it's like, well, then more people are using it. Why are they even using the drug or going to it? I guess, like you said, it's kind of like smoking. You got to educate them. Don't do it, or do you need other, for lack of a better word, services to help those people who are having whatever issues they are?
Well, I mean, in part, this crisis that we are facing today really is part of the opioids that actually the medical community, right, used to prescribe to individuals because of pain. And we didn't realize, or at least they didn't realize, how addictive really all of those kinds of pain management medication was. And now we know, and obviously some companies knew that too. That's why we have sued some of them, right?
Yeah.
The OxyContin company that made the OxyContin and so forth. So I think we know the results now, and we know what happened. Massachusetts, actually, we have passed laws in the past that address some of that prescription ability to limit the number of pills, if you will, that can be prescribed to any individual around pain management, right? So, and that has helped actually reduce the number of those kinds of opioids on the marketplace, right? But I think we need to go beyond that. I think we need to really make an effort to really do a serious education process here. And those individuals are addicted. At times, it's not. They didn't want to get addicted, right?
Right.
It was because of the medication that they used that really got them to where they are today. So we need to really addiction is a disease, right?
Yeah.
And we need to treat it that way, and we need to start talking about it. I mean, sometimes it's amongst families. Sometimes it's like the dark secret, right? They don't want to talk about what's going on and seek help. Sometimes you need to do it. This kind of powerful addiction as it is, you need to seek help. You need to talk. You sit down, talk to your kids, educate your kids, educate yourself.
And I heard from more than one person that the forum was very good. It was well attended,
yep.
And a lot of people, and a couple of people said, well, I learned something too. And a couple of people said that was sort of the largest forum with the biggest group that they attended for that topic, which was kind of interesting.
We had over 300 people attending the forum. I think there's a lot of good information in that forum. I think people walked away with some powerful information. Hopefully that will not the last forum we have, because I really think that's the way to go, is to provide as much information as we can, educate people as much as we can on this issue.
Lots going on. Got about a minute left. Anything quick you want to throw in there?
I'm waiting for your questions.
We had a lot of topic. We didn't even get to the train, but everything's still, from as far as you know, all systems are still in place for commuter rail to begin in June.
That's the latest information we have, is that June is the target date right now.
Right.
It might be earlier. It could be as early as May, sometime in May. That's what we've been told as well. But let's assume it's going to be June. If it's June, it's great.
Right.
Because it will. We've been working, as you know, we've been fighting for this for years, right?
Years. For years and years.
Finally, it's going to come. It's finally going to be here. And that's going to help our community. It's going to help the greater New Bedford area in the city of New Bedford really a great deal. I think it is. Not only allowing people to go, it's really a two-direction. For example, you're going to be able to take, let's say if you have a job in Taunton, or Brockton, or Bridgewater, along the route, right?
Right.
You're going to be able to take the train from New Bedford. It doesn't mean you have to, every time you take that train,
You're going to Boston.
you go to Boston.
Right.
Right? That now you don't have the ability. If you have a job in Taunton, how do you get to a job in Taunton if you don't have a car?
Right.
Because there is no bus service between New Bedford and Taunton, for example.
It's going to open up a lot of opportunities, hopefully, and that's the point.
Yes.
And plus, people who go to, for example, Bridgewater State, students.
That's right.
You can just.
Because that's one of the stops.
Right.
The train goes right through there. How many runs are going to stop there? We don't know yet. That's the other thing we don't have, is the schedule that might be available to all of us once the train gets here.
Right. Good seeing you. Lots of good stuff there. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you.
Come back again whenever you invite us.
That's going to do it for this edition of the Beacon Hill Report. Our guest, State Representative Tony Cabral. We thank him for his appearance. That's, as I said, going to do it. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Last week, Brandon met a girl on a dating app. One day after work, he finally found the courage to ask her out. No answer. He started to panic. Was he being too pushy? Maybe it was too
Hey, sorry I didn't respond. I was driving. I would love to go on a date. How does tonight sound?
Brandon tried to play it cool, but inside he knew. A girl so smart, so responsible. She must be a keeper.
Have you ever seen somebody treated unfairly because of the color of their skin?
Do you guys know what it means to have white privilege?
What is racism and what do you think about it?